Welcome and thank you for choosing True Grit, the show about what it really takes to rise, rebuild, and stay the course when life hits hard. I'm Kalish, a coach, storyteller, and believer in the kind of strength you can't fake. Around here, we talk about real people, real stories, and the lessons that shape us, from resilience and mindset to health and healing, because grit isn't about grinding harder, it's about who you become when you don't quit. Let's get into it. Hello, welcome, and thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to come and join me. I really believe that you're going to get a lot out of this episode, as I'm going to be talking about chasing health for fat loss. And the three things that you're going to get out of this episode is how often you should be working out, identifying and overcoming roadblocks, and managing expectations, because that's something that can be really, really hard as we have to trust the process. So what I really wanted to get into was my story and share what I've been doing as I go on my health journey. Because the thing is that as a personal trainer, there is an expectation to look a certain way. And to be quite honest, I am on my own personal journey with my own fitness, and it takes a while sometimes. My background with autoimmune disease, where I have realized, it took me years to realize that it wasn't just like how I was built, but that there was really an uphill battle that I was having with basically muscle atrophy for so many years, and then not training the correct way, and then finally figuring it out. And it does take a lot of time to put on that muscle. Also, at the same time, all of my fluff goes to one central area around my waistline. And so essentially, if I were to not work out, I would be very apple-shaped with toothpicks sticking out of them. That's just how I'm ultimately built. But it doesn't have to be that way. And I've definitely taken the responsibility and the ownership and the power of building my own body and rewriting my own story, rather than sit back and be in this victim mentality and blame all the different things that I'm not where I want to be. So to really get into it, I realized a few years ago that I had to start chasing health over that fat loss and having that certain look, because every time I tried to get rid of that extra fluff, I would just plateau. I would get frustrated with the process. It wasn't happening quick enough. I wasn't happy with other aspects of my body either. Like my legs were too skinny. And again, like even at my skinniest, when I get stressed out, my appetite bottoms out. I am force feeding myself. I know I'm kind of the rarity out there, but that's just the fact of it. I'm going to go eat to cope with my stresses. I just shut down. The appetite just shuts down. And so there has been a very, very stressful episode in my life that carried on for a long time. And I got down to about 97 pounds. I'm 5'4". And even then, I have to say, and not that this was a deliberate thing, but even then, I did not have visible abs. So let me repeat that again. At 97 pounds, 97, 98 pounds, at 5'4", I did not have visible abs. I had skinnier legs, skinnier arms, which just goes to show that chasing the fat loss, again, that's not what I was doing, but you would expect that I could have at least had visible abs at that point. Something I've just really always wanted for most of my life. Looking back at pictures when I was a teenager, I realized that, okay, I was a lot more fit than I thought I was, at least in the midriff section. So now, as we get into my late 30s and I am getting back into the gym and I'm struggle bussing again, I'm trying to do the whole 5-day-a-week workout. And then when it doesn't work out, I fall off track, like all of that yo-yoing back and forth. Trying all of the fads. It wasn't until I learned that I needed to chase health that things have started to change for me. So I learned how often I should be working out is really just 3 days a week. And that's pretty true for most people. There are different people with different goals, and you train according to those goals. But for the general population, 3 days a week of full body exercises that are trained, that are programmed in a smart way is really what's going to move the needle for you. It gives you a lot of space and grace to have time to dedicate to yourself. I mean, really, it just comes down to 3 hours a week. And once I started doing that, that's when the consistency really started happening. because sometimes I wasn't able to make it to that gym that day. So the very next day I could go. Usually I can hit the gym at a minimum of 2 days a week, if not 3. But I have a little confession. It wasn't until about September of last year, so September 25, that I really started to be able to hit those 3 days a week consistently. Holidays came in. At that point though, I think I would drop down to like maybe 1 or 2 days a week every so often, which was fine because I also program in what we call deload weeks. So where you go a little bit lighter, give your body a real good chance to recover, and then you can come back into the gym stronger, pushing harder, your body's building quicker. And then because you're chasing that health and you're taking care of yourself and you're looking at nutritious foods and fueling yourself appropriately, the body responds, it heals, it recovers, it builds muscle, it burns the fat when you are sitting on your ass watching Netflix or doom scrolling or whatever. And so it hasn't been until this point that I have noticed that change. So that is not to say that I have not had this mental tug of war with myself. This, like, we're just like that now. We want that instant gratification. The months can feel like a long time. It's still dropping back into I've got to trust the process because I am seeing the changes happen month by month. I'm not where I want to be yet, but I'm on my way. And if I stop now, if I give up now, I'm never going to get there. It still feels like a very far reach for me. But again, I am still seeing the changes happen. So last year, when I started to make these changes, when I started to become more consistent and not chase the fat loss, just realize I had to just accept it. I had to accept that, like, okay, it's still summertime out here throughout most of the year. Southern Louisiana, it's hot. We get out in the water. I'm going to be wearing a one piece. And that's just how it is. There are times where I use my clothing to kind of camouflage the little bit of fluff, whatever you'd want to call it. But it's just for the meantime because I have been building muscle. I've been making sure that my legs are growing, that they aren't looking as scrawny anymore. My glutes are growing. My arms are also growing. I don't have any of that problem of the underarm flab or anything like that because I am creating that scaffolding that helps support the overall structure of my body so that I do look fit and toned. And it hasn't been until about a month or so ago, we're in the springtime, that I have decided that I've been building enough muscle that I can start to focus more on the fat loss. And what that's looked like is adding in more steps. So I'm getting 10 to 15,000 steps in a day. That helps put me into the calorie deficit while still being able to eat enough to get the nutrients, to get the protein, the amino acids from the protein to build my body, while also going on a very modest cut of like maybe a couple hundred calories a day. Nothing too extreme because I'm still building my body and the scale is already going down. And I have to say, I've been able to have pasta. I was having king cake, we were going through Mardi Gras season, and I'm still losing body fat, but I am making sure to weigh out my food. So it's a little bit more of a meticulous process. However, my body is responding really well, and I do believe it's because I put on this extra muscle. So that's kind of getting into that how often should you work out kind of thing, and going into now the identifying and overcoming obstacles. I already talked about that mental obstacle, trusting the process, and that is a continuous thing. I work on it day by day. If I try on new clothes and it's just still not fitting the way I want to, I'll get in my head a little bit. I have to remind myself that this is still a process. Things are still getting better, and to look forward to the future when I've stuck to it and I can reap the rewards of all the work that I have been putting in. Because, I mean, the truth is, the time's going to go by anyway. So I may as well use this time productively. But I think a lot of the common roadblocks that people will have is just trying to figure out how to squeeze in that time. And while that's a common roadblock, there are so many things that can come up for people. So I know that when we had our home gym set up at our old house, it was so easy for me just to go and pop in there and stay consistent that way because it was so convenient. If I wanted to pop in there at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I could. And it didn't take much extra time for me just to go and do that. Sometimes I could split up the workouts too. I could go in there and get my squats in the morning and then come back like in the afternoon and finish my workout, that kind of thing. Because fitting things into my schedule, it made it a lot more flexible. When we moved out here, we found that we didn't have the space well, we have plenty of space, but we don't have an ideal setup to have that home gym. If we wanted to build out like some sort of tough shed on the property, it would have to be raised because we get flooded out here. The house is on stilts. The basement isn't ideal. It's not even a proper basement. It was enclosed later on. It's really low ceiling. So trying to do a lot of workouts in there, overhead press, that kind of thing, we're running into the ceiling, or at least my husband is. I might be able to kind of get away, but anyway. So we ended up putting it over at my mom's house. She got a place that's just 2 or 3 minutes down the road. Thought that that would be ideal, but the roadblocks were that I couldn't trust myself to not just show up there and do my workout and then go straight home without like getting sidetracked, talking to my mom, that kind of thing. The room is also really, really tiny, and I was making it work for a little bit, but there were just some things that I really want to be able to do. The type of programming I want to do these days, workouts that I want to do these days, I just need a little bit more space for different kinds of equipment. You don't have to have a very complex workouts, but this is just for me personally. When I'm working out regularly, I like to mix it up a little bit, keep it interesting. And so really it came down to I needed to join a gym, but I had to sit there for a while. There was months going by where I was not making it into the gym, and I finally just had to sit there and be like, what is my problem? I had to really be honest with myself. This was the problem. This was what was keeping me back. Okay, how can we overcome it? Well, I needed to go get a gym membership. That's just what it came down to. And there are a few different options. Like if I was looking for a budget friendly one, I could have gone to Planet Fitness. Sorry, I call it Planet Anti Fitness because there's a lot of rules in there and not quite the equipment that I want. They don't necessarily have it, but that's my tangent. However, if that's what I needed to do, that's what I would have done. Anyway, I found a different gym that I like, and it's fantastic. It's just a few minutes down the road, and it's worked out really well for me. So identifying the roadblocks, like what is coming up for you? Why can't you make it to the gym? Is there too much on your plate? Are you spread a little too thin? What are things that you can either delegate to others to take care of? Are there things that you need to start saying no to so you can actually make the time for yourself? And I'll get into this in another podcast talking about that self-prioritization and the guilt that can be around there, and that being another roadblock as well. But for this conversation's sake, it's just kind of looking at those like little things of they're not little, they're obviously things that are big enough to get in the way of you doing the things that you want to do so you can stick to your goals. But sometimes the answer is a lot easier than you think if you actually just acknowledge what the issue is. Just like for myself, I'm not going to the gym. It's been multiple months now. I'm not going regularly. What is the problem? I have resistance around going because it's going to take up way more of my time than I really want to because XYZ. So the workaround was going and getting the gym membership, and it solved a bunch of different problems for me. And now I can go consistently. So that's my personal example. Yours may very much be different, but look at those roadblocks. And the final piece of this, though, is managing the expectations. This does take time. What I think that has really ruined us as far as our expectations is all of the predatory marketing that has been out there. I'm going to explain something to you, and this is going to blow your mind. But when you have seen those commercials or those ads and it shows this dramatic transformation in a very short time frame, the time that those pictures were taken were reversed. The before was taken after and the after was taken before. What these people do is they will go to these competitions, bodybuilding competitions, fitness competitions, and they will pay these people to let them take the pictures of them just after they've gotten off stage. They look phenomenal. And then they will have them put on fat. And then as they put on the weight, they will take pictures later on. Take those pictures and then tell you that the version of them with more body fat was the before. And the version of them from when they were on stage or just after they had been on stage, that ends up being the after. And it shows this wild transformation. I will caveat that there are certain people that lose fat really, really quickly, that can get in shape really, really quickly. They may have been previous athletes. There might be a genetic thing there too. So there are some exceptions to the rules. But for the most part, we now have these wild expectations. And when it doesn't happen in that 3 weeks or even 3 months, we get really down on ourselves. And when we don't have our expectations managed, we start to self-sabotage then. We just throw everything out there. It isn't working anyway. Why am I even bothering? And I think having that knowledge is very, very powerful. Yes, it can take years to build up that body that you want. I often love dropping the story about her handle's called Training with Joan. She is now 79 years old. She started her health journey at the age of 70. She was overweight, diabetic, medications, all these different things. Her daughter is a personal trainer, still looks phenomenal at 50 something years old. She's not quitting, but she started training with her daughter, and it wasn't an overnight thing. But when she's 70, she's now 79. She looks phenomenal. But this is multiple years. But just imagine, though, that, I'm 42 right now. My journey started a couple years ago. I've definitely been going through my own transformation. I am so excited about how I'm going to look when I'm 49. But if I quit right now because I'm not there yet, I won't get to see that version of myself at 49. I'm going to be just still stuck here at 49. Maybe even worse. So again, going back to that expectation I kind of put on myself, and that I do think that others have, quite honestly. I'm a personal trainer. I have decided to be open and honest about my own journey. So when you see me and I'm still like a little bit more petite, I'm talking about glute strength and stuff, and I've still got a teeny tiny little booty, and then I don't feel comfortable yet in a bikini. And this is the reasons why. I'm still on my journey, and I had to get comfortable with that, but I'm also going to be honest about it as well. And I think that's given me power over the narrative. And as I've been going along, whenever I've gotten into my head about just feeling frustrated that I'm not there yet, I start looking back at all of these milestones I've already hit. I'm stronger than I was. I have more muscle on me than I did. My health seems to be improving, all of these different things. And it's all because I've been chasing health over aesthetics, and the aesthetics is now coming. So there you have it. Your takeaways today is basically how often you should be working out. I touched on identifying and overcoming certain roadblocks, and a lot about managing expectations. So I will leave you with that today, and I hope to see you again next time. Take care. Thank you so much for being here on True Grit. I truly appreciate it. If this episode sparked something in you, share it, subscribe, or leave a quick review. It helps more people find these conversations. For more ways to connect, head to true-grit.fitness or come say hi on Instagram at true.grit_bold.wellness. I'll see you next time with more stories, lessons, and a little bit of grit.